I agree, Brent, especially these youngsters now. But we've come across the Nkuhuma Pride who have moved from where they were this morning. And we left them in some very, very thick vegetation, and they have just moved into some more very, very thick vegetation. And that's just because they're trying to escape the heat that is upon us today. And I can still only see 3 lionesses, but all 6 cubs are here. Now the problem is that we're wedged between a couple of tamboti trees. We've stumbled across a little tamboti thicket, and they're big trees. So it makes for maneuvering quite difficult. So we'll have to see what we can do. Hopefully it does cool down in an hour or so, and then we will hopefully get them moving out of this area. But I must warn you, because it is such a tight space, there are quite a few vehicles out on safari this afternoon, and I know that they would love to come and see the lions. So perhaps what we'll do is we'll just sit here for a couple of minutes, and I think we can only really fit 1 vehicle in here, which is a pity. But the other guides, I'm sure, won't be too long, and we can go off and look at the hippos at Buffelshoek Dam, and then once Spot opens up again, we'll come back here. But for the meantime, we can enjoy it. And I'm not going to be fooled by these ladies, because they've done this to us a number of times, where they sort of wake up from a mid-afternoon siesta and they start to groom themselves, which is normally an indication that they're going to wake up and get moving. I suspect that this is not the case, though. Look at her. She doesn't look like she's ready to go anywhere just yet. Your eyes are barely open. So I think that she's just having a little groom, a little stretch, and she'll probably roll back over and go to sleep again until the temperature decreases slightly. Look at that. Trying to pull off any parasites that are lying underneath her hair. And especially at the moment, I think they're going to have to do quite a large amount of grooming. More so than in the winter months, because of after all the rain you get a burst of ticks. And I've seen a lot of those pepper ticks, those tiny ticks that are almost the size of a pinhead, all on the grass at the moment, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of bond ticks about too. So they'll need to keep themselves, of course, nice and clean. But they're looking so healthy, which is really good. Remember, we are on a live safari, so if you have any questions about the Nkuhumas, I'd love to hear from you. You can hashtag Safari Live. Oh, bless you. You can do that on Twitter, or you can send us an email, questions@WildEarthTV. Let's see what she's going to do now. No, don't go lay there. Michael, you're commenting on the shape of the pupils versus domestic cats versus lions. And you're saying that, I think you've just said that lion pupils are round, whereas cats seem to be more vertical. And you're wondering why. That's a very good question. Perhaps it's got something to do with their eyesight at night. But then I also think to myself, domestic cats are also predominantly nocturnal. They spend the most of their days lounging about, doing absolutely nothing. And then when night comes along, my goodness, then you hear the screeches from the males having to go out on patrol and hunt too. So I'm not actually sure about that, but I suspect it's got something to do with their light absorbing abilities. But Michael, I'll do a little bit of research. I'll have a look at one of my mammals books, and they actually do speak about the lion's eyes. I'll have to do that this evening. Sadly, it's in with the rest of my books, and I shall get back to you hopefully tomorrow. But a very, very interesting question nonetheless. Hello, little one. You see, this little one's also starting to wake up slightly, but I think it's just going to join the rest of the carpet of the lions. Ryan, you're wondering what is wrong with the lion's elbows. You said that they're all black. Now, unfortunately, it's not arm pads for them to go skateboarding. Unfortunately, they were plagued by mange. So mange is a parasite that feeds on the hair follicles of the animals, and normally it attacks them when they're in a weakened state. And we saw this, of course, in the winter months when the buffalo, which is what they were mainly feeding on, weren't getting enough nutrients. So unfortunately, their immune systems dropped, and they were, by the mange. But this seems to have gotten much better now. At one point, a couple of them were completely covered in black. And unfortunately, if you have been following, you'll know that the Styx Pride doesn't seem to have too much luck with mange, and they lost their previous set of cubs. But they've got 2 now, and we'll see if they make it to adulthood. But it is very tough when you get something like mange from your mother almost straight away as a very, very young cub. And this can make it very difficult for your chances of survival. See, there's a lot of cloud cover now, which is proving to be very pleasant. You can see there's not much sunlight, just every now and then the odd beam coming through. And they look a little bit restless, waking up, laying back down on top of each other. There's little flip-flop. There's our favorite little lion cub, well, my favorite little lion cub. But you can see, now this is a good example. She was covered in mange, literally from the tips of her ears right down to the tip of her tail. And you can still see it, the damage around her ears, and you can see those black sort of blotches going down her neck. But she looks much better. I can promise you, she looks absolutely 110% now. And I think that she will pull through. But we're going to go across to Brent, who's having a birding day, and I wonder if he's found that monotonous lark. Sorry, I'm just having a very good... We're back with the Nkuhumas, and the sun is slowly starting to go down, as you saw there with David. And the lions are still sleeping. One has got her head up, and a couple of little ones seem to be getting restless, including my favorite little lion at the moment, doing yoga. And the flies are definitely annoying these lions. You can see their tails are swatting quite a bit. So I must say, literally just a moment ago, this little lioness went up to her mother, I can only presume, and tried to actually suckle off of her. And you might even be able to see the wet marks where, there we go, you can see where she was attempting to suckle. But I don't think she had very much luck. Mom sort of kicked about a bit and tried to chase her off. So I suspect that she's not producing any more milk. And it's about right. They should have been weaned now. She was the last one that had to be weaned. The others are all 8 and 9 months old now. But, of course, as cheeky as little animals are, and, well, they still try to go in for a suckle. Hello, little girl. Look how precious she is. She's my absolute favorite little lion. I wish that she would just come pondering over here, though, so that we could see how she's doing. But remember, when the last time I saw her, her entire stomach was covered in black, and you can see it's still a bit patchy, but she's definitely healed up. And remember, her tail was completely ruined, and that is also looking much, much better. The hair, when she decides to flick it again, we'll see it, but the hair is starting to grow back, so that's really good. I think that they'll have patchy elbows for quite some time, but it'll Jeremiah, you've made the comment that cats sleep in the most uncomfortable positions. I have to agree. The way that they also will just sometimes lay down on branches and sort of bits of logs and all sorts of debris. I don't know if I'd find that very comfortable. And I always love it, the way that they sort of roll over onto their backs. There we go. That's my favorite lion position. Look at that. Hand on the belly, stretched out as if they were on the coast of Mozambique, sitting under an umbrella with a cocktail in hand. But no, they're not. They're still here in South Africa. And I think we can... I'm really trying to be positive. I'm hoping that they're going to start to get moving, because it's cooled down quite a bit. The temperature has definitely dropped a couple of degrees now. And it's so still out here, they will be able to hear anything that's moving around them. Now, Courtney, hello to you. You're wondering if there are any reasons as to why a lion pride would split up, other than just it being a large pride. It could be a number of different things, Courtney. And one of the things we actually saw down in the southern sands is, and I often speak about the southern pride. They were a large pride of 20 plus lions, and then male lions actually came in and caused quite a bit of havoc. There were about 3 different sets of lions that came through and disrupted the southern pride, and it eventually led off to them separating and almost forming two different prides, and only the one half of them, 5 lionesses, very much like the Nkuhuma Pride, ended up surviving, and now they've bred up again to about 20, I believe they're 11 cubs. So it can be, males can cause a lot of havoc and distress amongst females, which will often mean that they will move off and move out of areas. And then, like you rightfully said, the pride just getting too large can often mean that they will split up into smaller family groups, which happens every now and then. And then sometimes you'll get, and I've seen it again in the Eastern Cape, we had a young male lion who was inevitably going to be kicked out of the pride when she reached about 2.5, 3 years old, but his sister decided to go with him. So they both left together. He got chased off, she wasn't chased off, but she decided to keep her brother company, and they moved off and ended up living in the southern sector of the reserve, on another side of the river from the rest of the pride, and they lived happily ever after. So that was an unusual case, but you sometimes see these strange things. And I suppose food availability, if the pride is reluctant to leave an area, that might make them split up and move on. And disputes against different members. I suppose you don't always get along with everybody, and I'm sure it's the same thing out here with lions. Some lions might have a stronger bond with each other than perhaps another particular individual, and they might move off too. But not these guys. For the moment, they seem very happy amongst themselves. Oh, you asked a little bit mangy, but definitely not as bad as what it was. So I'm so sorry, I didn't quite hear what Kirst said, but she said something about Jamie being on Jamie, no, not Jamie being on Jamie being on the Djuma Dam wall. I wonder what she's got from that beautiful viewpoint.